Let's see. A second. Oh, for some reason, okay, there you go. So articulatory phonetics is the study of production of speech sounds by the organs of speech. Remember, there are many organs of speech. The nose is one, right? That's how we make nasal sounds. From the lips back, you get a lot of different organs, including the tongue, the lips, the teeth, the alveolar ridge, the palate. You get the velum. You get the uvula in some languages. Not in. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, not in English, obviously. But the uvula, what we call in Spanish the campanita, right? That you can see when you open your mouth, you know, in front of a mirror. That is also a speech organ in some languages like French, like some African languages, and so on. So even when you go down, like the pharynx, the larynx, all those things are involved into making the sounds. And then obviously we end up you know, our speech organs in the vocal cords. Okay, so the vocal cords are located in the larynx. They have an opening in between that you know, let the air goes through freely or with some friction, and then that opening is called glottis, which is the last speech organ, right? So that's how we make glottal sounds. If we open the glottis and let the air come out freely, or if we make some friction with the glottis, then we are making some glottal sounds like the as in house, right? Or like we call it in Spanish, the jota. Jota is a glottal sound. We will get into more details later when we study the consonant sounds. Okay, look at this. These are the organs of speech, obviously starting from the lips, okay? This is the first, and then it goes like this until we get the glottis, which is where the vocal cords are, okay? So I have a question, and I'm sorry, I mean, I love asking questions. So the glottis is the opening between the vocal cords. My question is, what happens if we have a damage in the vocal cords? What happens if we cannot make the vocal cords vibrate? What is the phonetic result of that? Let's say that your vocal cords are inflamed or you know, damaged for some reason, maybe a bad surgery or something like that. And then what happens to your vocal cords? What happens phonetically talking? What is the consequence, the phonetic consequence of not having your vocal cords 100% okay?
You won't be able to produce sounds, or most of them.
Okay, you won't be able to produce some or most of the sounds. Can you be more specific and tell me which sounds you will be unable to produce?
I would say vowel sounds mainly.
Okay, vowel sounds. Is there any reason why vowel sounds will be affected? Anybody?
More than that, I cannot say. It's just a thought I had, especially since I feel like the sound when I make vowel sounds, the sound is being produced like in this part of my body. So probably.
Okay, good. Yeah,
they are voiced. Vowels are voiced.
Exactly. You're right. Yes, the reason why you feel that vowel sounds are produced in this part of the body where you know the vocal cords are, is mainly because all the vowels are voiced. Okay, obviously there are some consonants that are also voiced, so those consonants will be affected as well. But 100%, like vowels will be 100% affected because vowels are voiced. All the vowels are voiced. There is no vowel which, you know, you can say, oh, you know, this vowel is voiceless. Never ever. All the vowels are voiced. The only way that a vowel can be voiceless and believe it or not, there is only one way in which the vowels can be voiceless, is when you whisper. Okay? If I want to tell you something and I don't want the rest of the people to know, I whisper. I make the vowels voiceless. That's the only possibility of having a voiceless vowel. Okay? So yes.
What about the T, P, and K that are voiced too? T, P, and K.
They're consonant.
Yeah, the consonant sounds. Yeah, some consonant sounds are voiced. In the case of T, as in tomato, for example, that is not going to be affected by having problems in your vocal cords, like P as in pilot, or S, or what else? Well, there are many voiceless, like sh, for example, right? So all those voiceless sounds will not be affected. However, their counterpart, their voiced counterpart, will be affected. So you won't be able to pronounce the D as in they, for example. Okay. Immediately your vocal cords will try to make the voice, will try to vibrate, but will be unable. So in that case, that's what happens when you lose your voice, right? Yes.
Also the G and the H, the H, yes, because those are glottal sounds, like in her.
Yes.
The H.
Yes. However, since the H, is a glottal sound, but since the H is voiceless, there won't be any affectation, because when you pronounce the, what you are making is a very slight constriction of the air in your glottis that make that little friction of air. So you hear, right? Because there is some friction, and the friction is in the glottis, but the sound is voiceless. So in that case, the H is not going to be so affected. But other sounds like B, for example, like M, will be affected. So the next time you feel you lose your voice, maybe you obviously not in COVID-19 times, but the next time you can go to a baile, to a disco, or to some places where you stay up all night, like singing or doing something, and then the next day you try to pronounce some sounds. Try to pay attention to the sounds that are more difficult for you to pronounce, and then you will see which sounds get really affected. Remember that when you lose your voice, you don't lose it entirely. Some sounds come out, some sounds don't come out, and then you suddenly start losing your voice. So pay attention the next time you lose your voice. Pay attention to those sounds that are hard for you to pronounce when you are in that state. Okay. Any questions regarding the organs of speech or articulators? When we say organs of speech, we mean the organs that are involved into the making of the sound. There are some sounds that are made in the lips. There are some sounds that are made with the teeth, obviously with the tongue involved. Obviously, the tongue is really important. That's why when, in the past, when you wanted to silence somebody, right, in the medieval times, they used to cut their tongues. Okay, that way they immediately lost all the possible ways for speaking, because the tongue is the most, let's say, useful and versatile organ of speech. Alveolar reach and all of that. Okay, so let's move on. Here you can see it more clearly, right? There is this thing, guys. It's epiglottis. Most people, or some people, don't really know the function of this little thing. Okay, we will talk about it now, so you can understand some things that have maybe happened in your life and you have no idea why. I don't know if you. I think you all have come through this. For some reason, since we are kids, our parents, okay, our grandparents also usually tell us, don't talk while eating, right? So if your mouth is full, don't talk. That is obviously one it's like a polite way of eating, right? If you're eating, don't speak. That's a polite way of sitting down on a table and then not like, splashing people around with your food and all that. However, there is another reason why eating and speaking really don't get along well, and this is precisely why. The epiglottis is this little thing that kind of function as a tap. Okay, so you have two different, let's say, tubes, right? There's one that goes to the lungs, and there's one that goes to your stomach, right? That is why when you drink water, the water doesn't go to your lungs, and when you breathe something, right? Let's say you smell perfume or something, that smell doesn't go to your stomach, okay? And the reason is this thing. This thing blocks the trachea when you eat, okay? So preventing let's say rice or any food that you are eating to go to the lungs or to go to the vocal cords. What happens when you eat? When you eat, that epiglottis thing blocks the trachea pretty much all the time. Okay, that is why when you drink water, you don't breathe at the same time. You cannot breathe and drink water at the same time. Okay, while you swallow water, immediately you stop breathing. Try to do it and then see if it is true. What happens if you eat and speak at the same time is that the epiglottis will keep moving up and down to try to cover the trachea, but open the trachea at the same time to let you speak. And at the same time, you are swallowing food. And that is precisely what happens when a little grain of rice fall into the trachea, and then you start choking, like you cannot breathe. And then when you try to speak after that, you sound like if you were losing your voice, because the vocal cords get affected by that little grain of rice. So that epiglottis, believe it or not, has a very important function in your organism. Okay, that epiglottis is the one responsible for people dying when some piece of meat or something gets stuck in your trachea and then you cannot breathe. The epiglottis is the responsible for that. Maybe when you have the food in your mouth, you breathe deeply, and then some of those little pieces of food fall inside the trachea and then blocks it, making you unable to breathe, and then until you die, basically. So that is the function of this little thing here called epiglottis. Okay. So the next time you hear somebody like, "Oh, no hable con la boca llena," you know why. Okay.
Good morning, Professor. I got a question. There, you're going to share those PPT you are sharing right now, or we have to take pictures only?
No. Don't worry about taking pictures. They are already in Classroom. I will share with you the link, so you can have access to the two PowerPoints I will be talking, or I'll be showing you today. And also, I already uploaded next class's homework, as well as a reference book for you to do it.
Thanks.
Okay, so sure, don't worry about it. Okay, so this is the uvula, as you can see, the campanita, right, as we call it in Spanish. That is the one that makes the French R, right? I cannot make it. It's like when Kiko in El Chavo del Ocho, the way he cries, like, oh, well, that is the uvula, the one that makes that sound in the back. Okay, we have the soft palate. This is also very important. I'm not going to talk about all the organs, but I want to really make some emphasis in this one because this one is really, really important. As you can see, just like the epiglottis blocks the trachea when you eat, the soft palate blocks the obviously and the uvula as well because they are tied up, right? But the soft palate is in charge of blocking the nasal cavity or the nose passage, okay, when you pronounce oral sounds. But then it goes down and opens up this passage when you pronounce nasal sounds, okay? If you don't believe me, try to block your nose and pronounce the sound, okay, like in mother. Block your nose and try to pronounce mother. That's really hard. The sound, you will feel all your nasal cavity filling up with air, and you are unable to release that air because the nasal cavity is blocked. Basically, that's what happens when you get a cold. Okay, when you get a cold and your nose is stuffy, you usually have to, or you usually tend to change the sounds, the nasal sounds, for oral sounds that are similar to the nasal sound that you need. That reminds me of an advertisement that I used to watch on TV. I'm giving you this example so you can see that if you really know phonetics, you will have an answer to different things that happen in the language. In this advertisement, this was like a cold or flu pill advertisement. And I remember there was this guy that had a stuffy nose, and he was going to call his, or he was going to say his name. I think, I don't remember quite well, but he was going to, tell his name, like, oh, so what's your name? And he said, Baduel. He was supposed to say Manuel. However, since his nose was stuffy, he changed the M for B and then the N for D. So he said Baduel, right? Because his nose was stuffy. I will talk about that later when we talk about the minimal pairs, and I will show you and explain why those sounds were changed in that sense. Okay. So, do you have any questions so far? No? Okay. So here, the vocal folds or vocal cords and the opening or the space between the vocal cords is called the glottis. Okay. Acoustic phonetics. We already talked about that. Is how the sound travels in the air. Okay. As you can see, it has some waves. Obviously, depending on the frequency of the sound, that same way, it will be shown in the spectrogram, which is how we measure the different sound frequencies. As you can see here, you see. Let me tell you a little bit how how we read this. This is in fact these two lines here, okay, are the ones that really determine which sound you are producing. As you can see, the E sound, or in this case I, okay, starts with the A right here. Okay, you can see very even lines, like very horizontally, well drawn and all that. But then when it changes into the E sound, the frequency goes higher, right? So I, right? And then here you can see this is a voiceless sound, which means in turns, right, that here there will not be an even pattern of the sound because it's simply noise, right? Right? So I can, again, the can, you can see the two even lines right here. And then it goes into the right? And then these two lines are the ones in charge of giving you like hints of which sound you're pronouncing. Okay, why is this so important? Oh, by the way, as you can see, the highest frequency sound in English and also in Spanish, and I will tell you why, is the S. Okay, this is the highest frequency sound, which means this is the sound that you let's say that you most clearly hear when somebody is speaking. And it makes sense. It makes sense if you think about it, because here in Panama, for example, when I'm sorry for using this example, but here in Panama, when you see a very pretty girl walking, right, and you don't want to say anything there because, or maybe she is far away. It's just like a male habit. It's just a matter of culture. You usually use to call her, right? Say, or when let's say your group, you're in charge of a high school group and they are making a lot of noise in the classroom and you are not able to communicate, you usually use this sound to call their attention. You use right, and it makes sense because is a very high frequency sound, so everybody will hear. If you use the F, it doesn't make any sense, right? A lot of people making noise and use it doesn't make sense because or F sound is a very low frequency sound. So the highest, always remember that the highest is S. The second higher is sh. So those two sounds are the highest frequency sounds in English and in Spanish also. Okay, even though Spanish doesn't have sh per se, but we can make it so that's also a high frequency sound. Any questions? No? Okay, good. So as you can see, these two sounds are back sounds. Okay, if you remember the chart where the vowel sounds are, these are back sounds. And as you can see, the two lines come together, right? In these two sounds, they kind of like go down and go together, close together in the back. So that is the characteristic of O and U, right? So let's see. Auditory phonetics, so field of phonetics concerned with the hearing of speech sounds. How you hear the sounds, how you understand the sounds, how you break them down to make sense. This is what happens in the speaker's and the listener's brain, okay? As you can see, the C goes for creative function. You need to think what you're going to say, right? And then whatever you think, whatever you come up with in your brain, then it goes into the forwarding function, okay? Which is basically involving your speech organs, right? And then it goes like in the nervous pathways into the vocal organs, which will make graphically whatever your brain thought, okay? So if you are not able to speak or to communicate properly, there might be a problem here or here, okay? Sometimes it happens to us that, let's say when we are in the bachelor's program, right? When we were bachelor students, at some point of the bachelor's program, we tend to feel that we have the answer in our brains. We know what to say in our brains, but when it comes to speaking or saying the answer or making the sentence and then speaking it, then there is a problem. And then we don't sound as fluent as we sound in our heads, right? In our heads, it's like, oh, I can speak fluently. But then when you start opening your mouth, there is a problem and then you don't sound that fluent. and that is because there is a problem in the nervous pathways, which means you need to practice more speaking so your vocal organs or your speech organs get used to moving as fast as your brain. Okay, but you are on the let's say on the way to learning a language. Obviously, when you produce those utterances, they travel in the air all the way to the ear of the listener. And then again, the ear will collect the information and the nervous pathways will take that information into the hearing function. Okay. Once here, then you start breaking it down and making sense. And then the process comes back again into the creative function, forwarding function, and then this guy will be the listener. So that's how communication happens or takes place. Okay, obviously, listening or understanding